In this video, we're going to start configuring the interfaces on our firewall based on the network diagram. We will first begin with the LAN-facing interface, which is plugged into our internal network with our connected users and computers. Now this firewall will be plugged into our core switch, which is a Cisco Catalyst 3750 series switch. Now based on the diagram, the LAN interface will be plugging into port 13, and here is how that interface is configured. Let's bring up our console to our core switch. And this is that interface that our firewall will eventually plug into. So let's configure the interface on our core switch. Let's go to that interface. We will first enable this to be a layer 3 port that will be connected up to our firewall. Next, we will configure the IP and subnet that will be shared between the two devices to communicate for routing. Okay, and we will enable this interface. And let's exit out. So right now, this port has nothing connected to it. I mean, confirm that by typing in this Cisco command. Okay, so here you will see that the interface is down and the LAN protocol is down. Nothing's connected to this yet in our production environment. So let's go ahead and let's save our configuration on the core switch. And let's go back to our firewall. Now, before we can add our firewall in the production network off of our core, we need to put our computer on the same network that the LAN interface of the firewall will exist based on our design. And here is what we have configured on our computer that is sharing the same subnet that will be used for our LAN-facing connection. There it is. So the IP that we configured is 172.17.99.19. Our core switch is configured for .18, and our firewall, based on our design, will be configured for .17. So we have to make sure that our computer is part of that same network so we can still access the firewall. So let's do a continuous ping to the IP that will be configured on the firewall, which would be 17.99.17. Okay, so when that interface is configured, it should then be reachable from our computer. Let's log back in and let's go back to our interface page. For the firewall unit that we are using, which is the 60D model, there are 7 switch ports which are tied together to become the internal interface. So you see it here and you see it up here as well. Now, other firewall models will reflect an actual port number. Therefore, in our environment, we'll be configuring the internal interface to act as our LAN-facing interface. And among those 7 switch ports, we will be using port number 1, which will be plugging into port 13 on our core switch. So let's go ahead and configure the LAN-facing interface on our firewall based on our design diagram. So let's first select this interface and let's edit. So on this page, we will be doing a few things and we will cover other sections when we configure that related feature or service. On the top here, you will see the default name, which is internal, followed by the general MAC address of the internal interface. And you will see that that interface is up and running, which is reflected for the link status. So under the addressing mode, which is selected for manual, you will see the default IP listed. And here we will change that to the IP based on our design, matching the subnet that is configured on the core switch. So in our case, let's go ahead and put in 172.17.99.17 and enter the correct mask. Next, for the alias name, we will call this LAN, which you will see when we select this interface as part of our security policy, because this is our LAN-facing interface that we want to identify on our network. Also, you want to make sure that the interface for the administrative status, which is reflected right over here, that it is selected for up, which means that it is enabled, or that this interface is enabled and can be used on our firewall. When we are done with what is needed for now, we will click on OK to apply changes. Now, making those changes, we will be soon, there it is, we'll be able to ping our firewall by its new IP address. Let's access the firewall again using the new LAN IP address, which is 172.17.99.17. We're connected. Let's make an exception here. And let's log in. Okay, now we're logged in, and let's go to the interface page. And there you can see the new address listed for the LAN interface. Before we plug our firewall into the production network based on the design diagram, we need to add a static route that points to our administrative network that can allow us to access the firewall again. Now, this may not be a step that is required for your environment, but to add static routes, we need to go to routing, which is here under the network section. And let's click on create new. For any static route that you add, you need to specify two main components. One is the destination network that you want to reach, and the second component is the next hop address for how the firewall would know how to reach that network. So here, we'll first enter the destination network of our administrative network, which is 10.67, followed by the correct mask. For the device, we will select the LAN-facing interface. And the next hop will be our core switch, which is connected to our administrative network. And this will be 99.18. And that is all that we need to do. So let's add our static route. Okay, so now that route has been added. So at this time, we're going to disconnect our firewall and we're going to plug it into the network based on our diagram and how things are set up. Our firewall has been plugged into our production network and we are able to reach our firewall from our computer in the administrative network. Fantastic. So let's go ahead and let's log into our firewall. And let's go back to the interface page. Okay, and there you will see our interfaces are up and running based on our design. So what's important based on our design is that we have our LAN-facing interface, which is connected to port 1 and connected to port 13 on our core switch. And we have our WAN interface, which is connected to the ISP.